Spiritual awakening is not light. For many, it feels as if the soul explodes from within. Everything that once made sense begins to crumble. It is frightening to realize that much of your life was built on lies you told yourself to survive. And that is where many cannot bear it. Most people expect awakening to come with peace, light, and answers. But what comes first is discomfort. It is the confrontation with the truth. It is the collapse of the image you have maintained for years. The process is real, profound, and requires more courage than any other change in life. The ego does not give in easily. It struggles, argues, makes excuses, and all of this happens within you. It is not a visible fight, but an internal one. The world around you may continue the same, but inside you, a revolution is happening. And those who do not understand this think they are going crazy. Awakening is not about feeling special. It is about becoming whole. And that includes facing the parts you have avoided for too long. Your pains, your masks, your fears. It is not a comfortable path, but it is the only one that leads to truth. And not everyone is willing to follow it to the end. If you want to understand why this process brings down so many people and how to get through it with clarity, stay with me. Let's talk about it honestly. And if this content helps you in any way, feel free to follow the channel. Just click there and continue right here. The truth does not free you immediately. It breaks you. Spiritual awakening is not like turning on a gentle light in the dark. It is like breaking down a wall from the inside out. The first thing you feel is not lightness. It is pain. It is the weight of the truth colliding with all the stories you told yourself over the years, without realizing it. The image you created to survive begins to crumble. That version of you that learned to please, to hide, to mold yourself to fit in the environments, collapses. And what remains is confusion. You begin to ask yourself, if I am not this person I have always been, then what am I now? This moment is terrifying, because it is not just a change of mind. It is a change of identity. The foundation that supported your decisions, your relationships, and even your faith begins to dissolve. And what is left is a kind of emptiness. A space where everything seems lost, but where in fact everything begins. The truth does not come as comfort. It comes as rupture. It uninstalls the lies that kept you functioning, but did not allow you to truly live. And that hurts. Because as false as those stories were, they were familiar. They provided security. Without them, you feel exposed, vulnerable, and directionless. Many people cannot endure this stage. They give up halfway, preferring to return to the old persona. They choose to maintain the appearance of control, even at the cost of their own peace. Because facing the truth requires something that not everyone is ready to offer: deep honesty with oneself. This is where many fall. Not because they are weak, but because they were never taught how to deal with this deconstruction. They were always told that the truth sets you free. And that is true. But before setting you free, it reveals. And what it reveals, most of the time, hurts. Freedom only comes after the wound is exposed and touched. For the chosen, this is not the end. It is the beginning of a crossing. The break is the starting point, not the final fall. When everything dissolves, the opportunity arises to build something real. Something that no longer relies on masks, external approval, or old patterns that no longer serve. This break is not punishment. It is an invitation to stop surviving and start living, to stop fitting in and start existing with truth. The pain is just the door. Those who cross it with courage find something that cannot be shaken, a center that does not depend on the world. You do not need to understand everything at once. You just need to accept that the truth has arrived. And it did not come to destroy you. It came to reveal you, even if that involves falling to your knees, crying what you have never cried, and questioning what you have always accepted. This is the process. It is real, and it is worth it. If the truth is breaking you, take a breath. Nothing wrong is happening. Something new is being born. And that new thing, even if strange at first, is what you have always sought without knowing. It is your essence, your voice, your soul returning home. It may hurt now, but it is a sign that you have finally awoken. The ego screams before it dies. The old version of who you believed you were does not disappear easily. It does not accept being left behind in silence. When awakening begins, the ego raises its voice. It resists. It makes promises. It tries to convince you that you are going crazy. It does everything to remain because it has learned that controlling is surviving. This ego is not an obvious enemy. It has your face, your voice, your memories. It wears your achievements, your fears, and even your spiritual ideas. It knows exactly where to touch for you to back down. Because it does not want to die. It wants to keep controlling, even if it costs your truth. When you decide to let go of control, it begins to scream. It says you will lose everything, that no one will understand you, that you will fail. It uses fear as a tool, and the closer you get to the truth, the louder it speaks. It wants to hold you in the old place, where everything seemed safe. But awakening is a process of surrender, and surrender is everything the ego cannot endure. It wants guarantees. It wants to know what comes next. It wants to plan the next step. But the soul does not work that way. The soul wants surrender, not a plan. It wants presence, not control. And this conflict generates pain. You begin to realize that control was an illusion. You never had dominion over everything. And now, what seems like chaos is actually freedom arriving. But this freedom is frightening, because it is new, it is raw. It asks you to trust without seeing, to continue, even without understanding. And this the ego cannot accept. It may even use spirituality as a shield, create rituals, beautiful phrases, poses of wisdom. But true awakening has no pose. It requires courage to let everything go, even the image of being a spiritual person. Because that can also just be another layer of control, disguised as light. You will feel fear. You will want to turn back. You will seek explanations that ease the discomfort. But this phase requires you to cross through, not to understand. The ego wants to stop and analyze. The soul wants to move forward, even while trembling. This is the breaking point, and also the point of birth of a new consciousness. Do not be alarmed by the internal screams. They are signs that something is changing. You are leaving the old structure. You are crossing into the zone where the ego loses space, and this is indeed frightening. But it is also sacred, because when the ego gives up, the soul begins to breathe. Letting go of control is not losing. It is finally freeing yourself. It is making space to live without so many defenses. It is allowing life to flow without so much rigidity. And when this happens, something changes. You begin to feel lighter. Not because everything is resolved, but because you have stopped fighting the inevitable. The shadow asks for a place at the table. Spiritual awakening is not about becoming a perfect version of yourself. It is about becoming whole. And that requires looking at everything you have tried to hide. Fears, wounds, resentments, wounded ego. The shadow is real. And the more you try to ignore it, the more it finds subtle ways to dominate your actions. The shadow is not just darkness. It is made up of the parts you learned to deny in order to be accepted. These are emotions that have been repressed, traumas that have been pushed under the rug, impulses you found too ugly to show. But denial does not heal. It only pushes things deeper. until they explode. Many people awaken seeking only light, but those who only accept the light end up creating another mask, more subtle, more spiritualized, but still a mask. True awakening is when you can sit with your shadow and say, I see you, you exist, and that's okay. Let's talk. This conversation is painful because it requires sincerity. You need to admit that you have felt envy, that you have wished harm upon others, that you have been unjust, manipulative, or cold, and that hurts the pride. But it is also at this point that healing begins. The truth about yourself liberates, but only when it is embraced, not denied. Being chosen does not mean being above error. It means having the courage to look within with honesty. The shadow is not a design flaw. It is part of your process. Denying it only reinforces the cycle. Integrating it is what breaks the pattern and paves the way to live with truth. When you acknowledge the shadow, it stops screaming. It only becomes dangerous when ignored. But when embraced with maturity, it transforms. You start to understand your reactions. You begin to identify repetitive patterns, and this gives you power, not over others, but over yourself. The table of your awakening needs all the guests, including those you never wanted to see up close. The shadow does not need to be fought as an enemy. It needs to be understood. When you listen to what it has to say, you understand where many of your pains and self-sabotages come from. It is not weakness to admit that there are parts of you that still need work. That is strength. It is maturity. It is the foundation for any real transformation. As long as you pretend that you have overcome everything, you will remain stuck. But when you say, I am still learning, you make room for something new to happen. The shadow is part of the journey, and accepting this does not diminish your light. On the contrary, the more aware you are of your shadows, the truer the light you carry will be. The chosen are not those who hide what they feel, but those who face what they feel and choose to grow with it. The descent is not a punishment. It is an initiation. When awakening comes, one of the first sensations is loss. You start to lose people, roles, labels, old beliefs. Sometimes you even lose the sense of what once moved your life. But none of this is punishment. It is just the beginning of a new phase. The problem is that no one taught you how to fall. From an early age, we learn to associate growth with ascending. More achievements, more control, more security. But awakening does not follow that logic. It starts at the opposite. It dismantles, breaks, empties. And that is frightening. Because the culture that shaped you never prepared you to lose your footing, only to chase goals and maintain appearances. The emptiness that arises seems wrong, but it is essential. It is a symbolic womb, a space between the death of one identity and the birth of another. It is uncomfortable, silent, lonely, but it is there that the essence begins to emerge. It is there that you discover what is real and what was just survival. You will wonder if you are regressing. You will think you have lost everything. But in reality, you are only losing what was not you, what was built to please, to hide, or to protect yourself. And this loss is necessary, because you cannot be reborn without leaving the old skin behind. The descent is a phase of purification. Everything that no longer sustains your truth will fall away. Relationships that were based on lies, goals driven by fear, masks that served to fit into spaces that were never yours. Everything begins to clear out of the way, even if you try to hold on. Often this process comes with pain, but it is not a cruel pain. It is a pain of growth, like the pain of childbirth. You are being reborn, even if you cannot see it yet. Each thing that crumbles opens space for something more aligned with who you really are. The secret is not to resist, not to try to understand everything right now. Just accept that the descent is part of it, that the emptiness is also sacred, that losing is part of the journey. Because only when you let go of what was false can you begin to live with truth. There is no other way. There are no shortcuts. You are not being punished. You are being initiated. You are being prepared to carry something new, something that does not fit in the old structure. And for that, the old structure needs to fall. As painful as it is liberating, because it brings you back to a deeper, truer, more whole place. Those who accept this process discover strength where there was once only fear. They discover peace amid confusion. They discover meaning in silence. Because awakening is not a spectacular ascent. It is a sincere descent, a return to essence, an invitation to be reborn, not with more weight, but with more truth. The silence will scream, and this is necessary. After everything begins to crumble, people, plans, roles, a strange phase arrives. Silence. It is not the silence of the environment, but the silence within you. The internal voices diminish, the stimuli lose their charm, and certainties disappear. It's as if life goes on pause, without explanation. You try to seek the same distractions as before, but they no longer work. What once excited you now seems empty. Conversations become superficial. Social media seems too noisy. Even old dreams lose their shine. Nothing fits anymore. It is then that the silence begins to scream within you. This scream is not loud. It is deep. It is a feeling of being in an unfamiliar space, where nothing is familiar. It is the interval between who you were and who you are about to become. And yes, it may feel like loneliness, but it is more than that. It is an internal call, an invitation to listen to the soul. In this silence, the heart begins to speak, and it speaks in a different way. Not with words, but with sensations. You start to notice what truly bothers you, what is misaligned, what needs to change. The mind no longer commands everything. Feeling gains space, and with it, the truth appears. This is the moment when the frequency of the chosen begins to manifest. It is an internal sound that only you can hear. There is no formula, no map. It is just you, with you. And in this space, something begins to reorganize. You realize that the noise outside never brought real answers. At first you may resist, try to fill the silence with anything. But no distraction works for long, because this silence is not a mistake. It is necessary. It is the ground where consciousness deepens. It is where you stop seeking outside and begin to listen to what is inside. Many give up at this stage. They run back to the noise. But those who stay in the silence begin to access deeper layers of themselves. They start to remember forgotten things, to miss their own essence, to see more clearly what really matters. This silence also heals. It clears the mind, strengthens the spirit, calms the body. It is as if everything returns to the center. There is no rush in this place, no comparison, just presence, just listening. And gradually, this listening becomes wisdom, not taught by books, but experienced from within. It is in this place that you reconnect with your mission. It is there that God speaks subtly yet surely, not with thunder but with direction. Silence is a portal. It only seems scary at first. Then you understand it was exactly what you needed. A safe space to become yourself again. You do not awaken to shine, you awaken to be. True awakening is not about standing out. It is not about becoming a spiritual reference or being admired for beautiful words. It is about aligning with who you really are, even if no one sees. The outer glow is not a priority. What matters is the coherence between what you feel and what you live. The era of appearance also contaminates the spiritual path. Many confuse awakening with visibility. They post deep quotes, stage wisdom, but continue to run away from themselves. Awakening does not want an audience. It wants presence. It does not require performance. It requires truth. And this often happens in silence, in private, in the invisible everyday. Awakening is about stopping the act. It is about living lightly without needing to prove that you understood something. It is about acting simply, speaking when necessary, listening more than responding. It is not chasing approval, nor seeking validation by appearing evolved. It is just being whole in what you do, feel, and choose. Those who truly awaken become simpler, more real, more present. They do not need to be right all the time. They do not need to be admired. The desire to shine gives way to the desire to remain in peace, in consciousness, in integrity. This is far more valuable than any spiritual appearance. You are not called to impress. You are called to exist authentically. And this true existence is, in itself, transformative. It touches those nearby, even without intention. The world is tired of speeches. It needs true presences, people who do not perform spirituality, but who live from the soul. Awakening breaks the logic of the world. It takes you out of the mold. You cease to fit in. And this is uncomfortable, but it is also necessary, because truth never adjusts to what is false. It demands space. It requires presence. And for that, a lot needs to be left behind, including people. Do not expect acceptance. Awakening is a solitary path at first. You will walk inward, often in silence, but it is in this silence that you hear your soul, and it is from this listening that your strength is born. Those who undergo this crossing return more whole, and more prepared to serve with truth. You did not come to please. You came to exist authentically, and this existence, even without a stage, is revolutionary. It breaks patterns, questions behaviors, and inspires effortlessly. Because those who live with truth do not need to explain themselves. Their presence speaks volumes. Their silence conveys something different. The true chosen awaken to serve, not to stand out. They know they do not need to be seen to be relevant. They remain steadfast, even when no one applauds. And interestingly, it is precisely these individuals who touch deeper, because they carry no ego, only presence. And presence today is something rare and necessary. Some will criticize you, others will mock, but there will be those who will remain silent and observe. And seeing you live with courage and simplicity, they will feel a call within themselves, a silent invitation to awaken as well. And perhaps unknowingly, you are being a beacon for someone simply by staying whole. Not everyone needs to understand you. Not everyone will. But that does not invalidate your process. The world measures by appearance. God sees the heart. And if you are at peace with your journey, that is enough. You are on the right path, even if you walk alone for a time. Awakening will distance you from many, but it will bring you closer to yourself. And in the end, this reconnection is what sustains everything. If the world does not understand, that's okay. You no longer live to be understood. You live to be whole. And that, in itself, is already a service to truth. Spiritual awakening does not take down because it is malevolent. It takes down because it is true. It does not offer immediate comfort. It removes everything that is false. It burns away the layers created to please, belong, or protect oneself. And what remains is you, naked before your own soul, without masks, without lies, without defenses. It does not hand you a new life ready-made. It invites you to cross the fire, to let go of what was safe, to lose what seemed right, to unlearn everything that did not come from your essence. This is frightening, and that is why many give up, not out of weakness, but because it requires too much courage. But if you decide to stay, even while trembling, something deep begins to happen. Presence strengthens, peace becomes internal, and gradually you start to live differently. No longer to impress, but to exist with truth. No longer to be accepted, but to be whole. And that changes everything. You do not go back to being who you were, nor do you transform into something idealized. You become who you have always been, but never had the space to be. Awakening is not about achieving something. It is about remembering and living from that remembrance in a simple yet powerful way, silent but firm. Those who reach this point are not invincible, but they are unbreakable because they know who they are, because they no longer need approval to move forward, because they have seen their own darkness and still chose to walk. And this, in the world we live in, is already an act of revolution. If this content spoke to you in some way, comment below. I want to know what this journey has awakened in you. Let's continue this conversation.